So Robert Whittaker thinks something was off with Justin Gaethje in his recent fight against Rafael Fiziev. You know, Gaethje just didn't seem like his usual explosive self, right? Whittaker believes that brutal knockout loss to Max Holloway might have really affected him mentally. When Whittaker was talking about Gaethje's performance, he said, "I just thought there was something off. I thought he might have been half a step behind or something." Don't get me wrong, I'm a big Gaethje fan, and Fiziev is a tough fight for anyone, especially if you're just gonna take it to him in the hands. But Fiziev took this fight on 12 days notice and looked so good at the start of the fight comparatively. I felt like Gaethje had a little bit more in him in their first fight. I don't know if you saw that as well, but it just felt like it wasn't the same Gaethje we saw pre-Holloway. Does that make sense? And honestly, it's a fair observation. Those brutal knockouts can really mess with a fighter's confidence and willingness to fully engage. Even if Gaethje won by unanimous decision, he didn't have that same sharpness, that same timing, that same movement we're used to seeing, and when you're known as one of the most explosive and relentless fighters in the lightweight division, even a slight change becomes super noticeable. The big question now is whether this is just temporary or if the damage from the Holloway fight is going to have long-term effects on Gaethje's fighting style. Despite these concerns, he's still one of the most dangerous contenders in that stacked lightweight division. But man, those wars in the octagon can really take a toll on fighters. Now let's talk about Paddy Pimblett. The Liverpool sensation isn't worried at all about Michael Chandler's so-called illegal moves ahead of their fight at UFC 314. Not even a little bit. When journalists asked him about Chandler's history of questionable tactics, Pimblett was like, "If you're not cheating, you're not trying. Know what I mean?" he said with that classic Paddy smirk. "That's on the referee." He was throwing hammer fists at the back of Charles Oliveira's head. Charles had to move his head or the ref needed to say something. I watched that fight the other day, and he hammer-fisted 12 times. He knows exactly what he's doing. But it's one of those things, if I were in that position, I'd be saying, "Ref, what are you doing? That was some bad refereeing." Pimblett didn't stop there. He also mentioned the infamous Dustin Poirier fight where Poirier bit Chandler's fingers to escape a choke. Paddy's take? Totally justified. He said, "I've seen the Poirier fight too. Poirier bit his finger to get out of the choke. I'll do the same thing if that happens. I'll bite his finger, try to cut it off with my teeth." It's one of those things. I always say, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. So basically, Paddy's making it clear. If Chandler tries any dirty tricks, he'll have no problem dishing out his own brand of payback. The Liverpool lad isn't going to rely on the referee to protect him. This fight is going to be wild. Moving on, we've got some massive news about Conor McGregor. Is he trading the octagon for politics? Recent reports suggest the Irish superstar might be setting his sights on becoming the next Irish president. McGregor has been getting more and more outspoken about Ireland's political landscape, urging citizens to support him over candidates from existing political parties. While he's always been known for his bravado, this move into politics marks a huge shift in his ambitions. Adding fuel to the fire, McGregor recently tweeted that he'd be meeting with former US President Donald Trump. His tweet read, "President Donald Trump, I depart for Washington today with my family. I look very forward to our meeting tomorrow on St. Patrick's Day at the Oval Office. I am ready. Godspeed, Ireland." This connection with Trump isn't entirely new. The former US president has previously expressed admiration for McGregor, saying, "I do happen to like your fighter. He's a who's who. He's got the best tattoos I've ever seen. I don't know if I'm a big Conor McGregor fan, but you have a lot of great Irish fighters, actually. Great fighters. I don't know what that is, but Ireland's always had a lot of good fighters. You know why? Because they're tough people, they're smart people, and they're passionate people." So here's the million-dollar question. Would McGregor's popularity as a fighter translate into political success? Is this a genuine career shift, or just another way for him to stay in the headlines? Whatever the answer, one thing's for sure. When Conor McGregor makes a move, the whole world takes notice. Alright, now let's talk about Rafael Fiziev. After his recent loss to Justin Gaethje at UFC 313, there's been talk about him potentially moving down to featherweight, 145 pounds, but Chael Sonnen is strongly advising against it. On his YouTube channel, Sonnen made his stance crystal clear. Fiziev is talking about going down to 145 pounds. First off, that's not a good idea. The years of your career, and when it's all done, the only thing that's real is the money and the miles. You will shorten your career by going to 145 inches. Sonnen emphasized that historically, fighters who cut too much weight and move down a division tend to experience more harm than success. He even challenged anyone to find examples of fighters who've thrived after making such a move. Historically speaking, you can't find me examples of when that has worked, Sonnen said, though he did acknowledge Jose Aldo as an exception. The former featherweight king has recorded several big victories since moving to bantamweight, but Sonnen stressed that's the exception, not the rule. This highlights a long-standing debate in MMA. Are drastic weight cuts beneficial or detrimental? While some fighters like Aldo have managed to successfully transition to a lower weight class, many others have struggled with extreme weight cuts, leading to diminished performance, increased injuries, and a shortened career. Fiziev hasn't officially announced his decision yet, but if he does drop to featherweight, he'll have to contend with elite fighters like Alexander Volkanovski, Ilia Topuria, and Max Holloway. What do you think? Should he take the risk and move down or stay at lightweight? Now for some exciting rumors. The MMA world is buzzing about the potential main event for UFC 316. According to Kevin K on Twitter, a highly anticipated rematch between Islam Makhachev and Mateusz Gamrot is reportedly being finalized. Kevin, a known insider in the MMA community, went so far as to stake his reputation on this news, claiming that Makhachev is already deep into his training camp for the fight. While the UFC hasn't made an official announcement yet, Dana White has previously acknowledged that both fighters have expressed interest in facing each other again. The two were even seen discussing a rematch at the UFC Performance Institute earlier this month, adding more weight to the speculation. If this fight is confirmed, it would mark one of the biggest rematches in recent UFC history, as both fighters share a deep history in combat sports. In addition to this main event, Kevin also hinted at a high-profile co-main event featuring Kayla Harrison versus Juliana Pena. Harrison, a former PFL champion, recently made the jump to the UFC and is considered a major force in women's MMA. A matchup with former bantamweight champion Pena would undoubtedly be a huge draw for fight fans. The event is rumored to take place on June 7th in Newark, New Jersey, making it a highly anticipated summer showdown. If this rematch happens, who do you think takes the win? Does Gamrot have what it takes to dethrone the dominant lightweight champion, or will Makhachev continue his reign at the top? Finally, let's talk about Colby Covington. The UFC welterweight contender recently shared a story about a heated exchange with a boxing fan outside an arena. This happened while he was attending the Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia fight this month. Covington, who's known for his outspoken and polarizing personality, found himself face-to-face with an aggressive fan who wanted to test him. Recounting the event, Covington said, "It's definitely happened a couple of times. I was front row last weekend for the Davis fight, and this boxing fan outside the arena was like, 'I'll F you up. You ain't nothing.' He was looking at me saying, 'Let's size up right now. Let's do it.'" But despite his aggressive persona in media appearances and press conferences, Covington's real-life response was much more measured. Rather than escalating the situation, he simply laughed it off. "I just laughed and said, 'All right, man, I'm glad you believe in yourself. That's awesome, dude. But deep down, I didn't want to engage.'" The former interim welterweight champion explained his reasoning. "What do I have to prove in the streets? I fight for a big paycheck in the UFC octagon. If you're so tough, why aren't you fighting in the UFC against the best fighters in the world?" Covington, who's coming off a controversial doctor stoppage loss to Ian Gary, has now failed in 3 separate title attempts. Despite these setbacks, he remains confident in his ability to make another championship run. But given his age and the ever-evolving welterweight division, the path to the top won't be easy. In closing, Covington made it clear that while fans may have their opinions about him, one thing should unite everyone. This is America, and you can have different opinions, but one thing we all need to agree on is that we need to love our country. And that's it for today's The MMA News Roundup. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on all these stories in the comments below.